Grit for the Day. Lived experience from influencers who overcome. With CEO and founder Thomas Lee Johnson.
I grew up in Los Angeles, so
okay.
My dad has always enjoyed cowboy shows and movies, so I guess I'll blame it on him. It's so funny that as a kid getting dressed up as a cowboy with a Mickey Mouse shirt, no less.
That's what's up.
But look, it was fun times as a kid, and now in days I bought my first pair, believe it or not. I bought my first pair of cowboy boots 3 years ago. And
First pair,
and I love them and wear them whenever I can. So I've done a few things in my career, in my life. I just haven't been a real cowboy.
So that's on the list.
It's on the list.
Excellent, man. Excellent.
Hey, it's good to see you. Welcome to Grit for the Day podcast. I am CEO and founder of agileimmersive.com, Thomas Lee Johnson. Agileimmersive.com is a transformation strategy firm where we help organizations transform into higher performing versions of themselves.
Hey, welcome to Grit for the Day. I am honored to have a friend and a mentor I've known for now over 18 years. It's been almost 20 years since I've known this gentleman. I'm excited that a senior executive and counsel in the insurance industry and a Fortune 200 company is with us. Brad Knox, welcome to Grit for the Day.
TJ, thank you so much, man. It's when you said 18, I'm like, whoa, wow. But what a treat it's been the entire time. I wouldn't have counted 18. You've just been a great friend, and we count each other as brothers. And,
absolutely.
Just going through life together. So I appreciated the gift that you honored me with by being on your show today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I had a great childhood. My parents. I have to again give the shout out to them. My mom.
Yes.
Was in the first class of black nurses in Memphis, Tennessee.
Wow.
And my father, he, didn't go to college, got through high school and went to work to support his family. And he ended up working for a major company, getting to the highest level as a supervisor that you could get in that company without having a college degree.
That's great.
And so they taught me hard work. They taught me, commitment. They taught me all those things. But how I got to the Air Force really is from a cousin of mine who had served in Vietnam, and he was stationed down at Camp Pendleton in San Diego. And he would come up to our place every once in a while for what they called back then R&R, rest and relaxation. And he'd come into our garage, drop his rucksack. And I was a kid. I mean, he was a lot older, and I thought, man, I got a real live G.I. Joe in our family, and I went through his rucksack and all of that. So he was a huge influence on me, and I remember back then, wanting to serve my country in that way. I thought it was one of the more patriotic things that I could do to serve my country. But he recommended that I do it in the Air Force and not the Marines. He was a Marine, so.
Was that because he felt you would serve better in the Air Force, or like?
No, he as one of the very few black officers in the Marine Corps at that time, he went through a lot and didn't want to see me go through the same sort of garbage that he went through.
Right.
Also, he knew how I was raised and thought the Air Force was a better fit for me than being a devil dog, right? I mean,
yeah.
So, and he was right. He was right.
Yeah. So we share Air Force officership. That's one of the things that we bonded on early on. Talk us. What took you from your Air Force service into serving on Capitol Hill?
So, the world is small, and networks can be through thin threads. And some, we periodically are, I think we're all influenced by someone for these kind of life events. And, my time in the Air Force as a JAG was just tremendous. I had, they throw you in, TJ, you know how it is. I mean, you're an officer, they throw you into leadership and you're expected to, sink or swim, and you better not sink.
Right? That's right.
And, and so, that actually, those experiences helped me with, as you know, I also had started my own IT company while I was in the reserves. I went from 6 years active to 4 years in reserves. And during that transition, I started my IT company. And so what happened is in that time, a good friend of mine that I had gone to college with, he was instrumental in encouraging me to go to law school.
Oh.
And what happened is he ended up becoming the chief of staff of a congressional committee. And he calls me out of the blue. Literally, I hadn't talked to him for 18 months before he called me. And he said, Brad, I'm in DC. I'm in charge of this committee. I need you to come up to Washington, help me run this committee, watch my back. I trust you. You've got all these experiences. And, would you consider it? And this dude is a consummate salesman. He could sell anything. And he sold me. He said, we're going to change the world for small business.
I love it.
So he got me, hook, line, and sinker. And during that time, I had signed a contract, a big contract for our company. We were small, but and I thought, well, we've already started this contract. It was with the Air Force. It was a federal contract. But how can I leave this and go do, Capitol Hill, work on congressional committee? But in my mind, I realized the opportunity to do something beyond myself and beyond my company that would impact, so many others.
Yes.
Was something just too juicy for me to ignore. So nice. I was able to keep my company running for a short bit while I moved up to DC to work on the committee. And I eventually sold my company to another company that was also, I was an 8A. Right. They were also an 8A.
Nice.
And they ran the contract out. So it was a great experience, and I would do it all again.
Excellent. Excellent. So entrepreneur, Air Force officer, and now you're on Capitol Hill. What was the draw from Capitol Hill into Fortune 200 insurance?
Well, I'll tell you let me step back if I can. The draw to Capitol Hill was to work on the small business committee for the House. Okay. And what attracted me was again, to be able to work on national and international policy that would affect America's competitiveness.
Yes.
And I wanted to be a part of that. It was a big picture, right?
Absolutely.
And when I took that job, my portfolio that I ended up with was manufacturing. I was an IT guy. I had no idea about manufacturing, right? But I loved the challenge to learn that new field, and became somewhat of an expert in that, and focused my time and energy on learning that portfolio. And we did a lot of work for, on competitiveness and international policy. So that said, I was there on the committee for 3 years. And at the time, when I started I have to step back again, because when I started my IT company, one of the smart things I did a lot of dumb things, but one of the smart things I did was I created an advisory board, and two of the people on that board were high-level folks at Aflac, at the company that I currently work for.
Right.
And so when I told them about this opportunity to leave the company and work in Washington, they said, absolutely, go do it. And we'll actually, help connect you with folks up there. So when I was on the committee in DC, 3 years in, I was looking to do something else. It was about time to leave the committee. And I was approached by the company. I was not looking to come to Aflac. Obviously, that just wasn't part of my thinking.
Right.
But they were looking to add some expertise to their government affairs division in DC.
Right.
And the gentleman who was heading that office reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested to have a conversation with him. I didn't realize the two people that I knew, they were, like I said, high up in the organization. They were the ones who were responsible for that. They thought I'd be a good add to that
nice
office. So that's how it happened. And it really was about, they knew my work ethic, they knew my character, they knew like, how I thought and worked, and thought I'd be a good addition. And it's worked out. It's been 16 years.
Amazing. 16 years.
Yeah.
So we're in the insurance industry. We are, did you start as a mid-level executive? Like how did that first, couple of years in the industry, what level were you at? What kind of work were you doing?
Sure. Well, I came in as a vice president, and
okay.
And really a funny story is one of the folks that worked in the office at the time. I was still a Hill staffer, and we were at this big event in Virginia. And I remember she came up to me and she was with somebody else, but she came and sort of whispered to me, "Hey, are you looking to leave the Hill?" And, she was actually the first person to mention this to me. She had caught wind of it and mentioned it to me. I'm like, well, sure. Okay. So it's sort of a funny story, and we've become best friends, and being able to work with people that you really love and admire is a particular joy when you're, doing stuff. So anyway, your question, TJ, was, I'm sorry, repeat the question.
What level would you say,
yeah.
What level, you already answered that question. Now, what did you start in the insurance industry doing? What did you?
Well, so funny story. I don't know that you know this, but before I went to law school, when I was a computer programmer in Houston after college, I actually sold insurance for a company, another company. It was life insurance. So my exposure to insurance was really shortly after college, a couple of years after college. And I'd gotten my life insurance license, as well as my Series 6 and 63 license for securities.
What?
And so I did that for a few years before I went to law school.
Okay.
So that was my first exposure. And then when I joined the company here, again, I had to learn, even though I was a staffer for a congressional committee, I had to learn the art of lobbying. I knew what being lobbied was like, but I had to learn the other side. Right. And so I had to learn issues that I, again, didn't know. I didn't know the supplemental health industry. I didn't know, the unique issues of, how insurance companies are situated legally, and this primarily state regulated. I didn't know any of that. So I had to do deep dives.
Yeah.
But really, my portfolio at the time when it came on was health insurance. It was tax, and it was, my role was really more around being the strategic and analytical guide around our policy. So I came in as a vice president, and I came in as second vice president. I'm sorry. And grew into this role over that period of time.
Excellent. All right. So now that we are in the role, what was the, we talked about, prior to the show, some adversity that you experienced, some challenges that you experienced. How did that start? How did the challenge start unfold?
Well, it comes down to leadership, and what can happen is when you're good at your craft, and when you do what you're good at. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but I mean, you hire people that are good, and so you hope they're good at what they do, right? You can have challenges with transition. And so sometimes what happened with my situation is I had a boss who felt, I'll just be frank, just felt insecure about the work that I was doing, even though I was doing things that I was being asked to do. And I had to get some coaching around how to do this in a way that I can show up with excellence without offending the person I'm supposed to be working for. And
so was that leader's insecurity about your performance because you were not meeting expectations, you were underperforming, you were sleeping on your desk at the job? Like, why was he insecure about Brad Knox?
Well, that's a question I can't answer, but it's not none of those things, because a leader the leader isn't insecure about a poor performing employee. They only become insecure about folks who might threaten them. And it's unfortunate because and I've seen this with other colleagues. You're doing your job and you're doing it well, and you're doing it to promote the person that you're working for.
Exactly.
Right? It's different. It's different if you if you're trying to undermine your boss, if you're trying to get the spotlight, and right. That's different. But it was just a very odd and difficult time, and my life during that time was really unpleasant because nothing I was doing was right. And there's certainly things, like if I could go back and do differently or do better, maybe do that. But I found myself in a really almost intractable situation where I really loved the company and the work that I was doing.
Right.
And the relationship that we had been very positive and supportive up until that time. But I think,
what were the behaviors and the tangible things that was happening to you that let you know your leader was insecure?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest tangible, and I say I'm no psychologist, so these are just how I would process it. Maybe there's some other labeled behavior, but in particular, it came to a head when there were actually a couple colleagues who had, one in particular, who had claimed that I had bullied her. Now, TJ, you've known me a long time, and that's exactly. And when I heard that, and I asked specific questions, what did I do or say? No, nobody in their right mind would have said that was me engaging with a colleague to get some work done and hold her accountable to things that weren't being done. Nobody would have called it that, but right. he took it and ran with it, and there ended up being an HR investigation. So that got ugly, and with that. I discovered that, there were a couple other things that were said about me that just, they weren't accurate. And so, right. You got to be, when you're on the defensive, it's hard to see, it's hard to step back and see what's going on.
Yeah.
You're just trying to self-preserve. But what the lessons that I learned out of that really had nothing to do with him or even, the experience, the crisis helped me realize and focus on things that I needed to learn about me.
Right.
And I think I shared with you, that's really when I learned about Brene Brown and her work and, vulnerability. And I had to have a coach come in and help me step back and zoom out. And, when you're in that situation, you're like, wait, what did I do?
Yeah.
What happened? What did I do?
Yeah. If you were to go to the moment when your coach asked you to zoom out the first time, what was that like?
I'd have to I think it was, I'll be honest. I mean, at first it was, why do I have to zoom out? Right. I'm not the one. I didn't do anything wrong. Right. He's the one, and, but once I was able to, what he was remarkable at, and he used this phrase with me, and it's not directly analogous, but the Roosevelt phrase about the quote about being the man in the arena.
Yes.
And what he said was, I honor where you're at, and you're the one in the arena. You're the one in this fight. And all the people that are looking and judging and questioning and wondering how this happened and why would somebody say this about you. And thankfully, the people that mattered, did what you did, crossed their arms and stepped back and went, wait a minute, that's not him. Right? They all knew that. And but what he did was he was able to recognize and it let me see, okay, I see where you are, but now let's detach yourself from this and step back with me to look at this in a broader context. Right. And when he, walking arm in arm through that made it better. It wasn't a single conversation. It took, weeks and months to get through that. Right. And this was all happening over the course of a year.
Yeah.
So, it ended up being positive, but I'll tell you, at the end of the day, that person transitioned out, and a number of people left for various reasons, but, more than half the team, left. So the blessing of that was I was able to start and build a whole new team.
Yeah.
Right. Based on some of the things, based on what I learned through that process.
Yeah.
How to treat people, how to be, how to give grace and, be honest in the moment. How to create a team culture and not pit people against each other. Things that I didn't want to have happen. Most of my leadership experience is based, I won't say most, but some of my leadership philosophy is based on how I didn't want others to feel.
Yeah.
Based on my experiences. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. When we think about the adversity, and you use the word, when you were going through it, it was unpleasant.
It sucked.
It sucked. So, yeah, man, a piece of the, when we are in our career path, you are a vice president, senior vice president now, but at the time you were a vice president, general counsel, lobbying on behalf of the insurance industry, on behalf of your employer. You had high-level contacts every single day. The people who you impact and you touch are influencers themselves. Mm-hmm. So you had to put on a brave face, I'm sure. You couldn't let them know. You couldn't let your clients know, your consumers, your partners, the people who you need to lobby know you got damn near an ulcer because of an HR investigation, right. False accusations, right?
Yeah.
All this is happening right here.
Yeah.
And you got the smile. You got that Brad Knox smile going on all day, every day. Now, listen, Brad, that's a superpower. How'd you do that?
Well, I'll tell you. First, thank you for that. And one clarification: I'm not the general counsel, because we only have one general counsel, and she's amazing. But I, report to her.
Gotcha.
But I will say that's the importance of having allies, and having done the work of being, so that when those moments of questioning come, you have allies that can push back and go, wait, is that true? That's not aligned with what I know. Let me ask these questions. And it means you have to always be authentic, right?
Right.
And so I think what helped me through that were every once in a while I'd get a little, douse of encouragement from different places, from different people. Hey, hang in there. Hey, we see what's going on. We got to go through this process, but just hang in there.
Yeah.
We see what, and so people who cared about me, really, that's what there's no superpower on Brad. It really was the people that reached out to care about me to help me get through it, because I couldn't have done it without that. And you're right, I still do my job, and the ability to compartmentalize is one of those things. But I also realized, that's a defense mechanism too, to protect myself, so I could do my job.
Right.
But if it weren't for the people that came around me, I just don't know that I'd be here sitting today with being able to tell you that story.
Yes.
Yes.
Today's grit story with Brad Knox is grit with a smile. What Brad Knox does not tell you is that as he endured the persecution from his HR department, he had to smile in the face of the high-profile clients, which include U.S. senators, congressmen, and heads of state. Brad Knox endured the persecution from his HR department while he did his job with excellence. He said that he built allies long before he was challenged by that HR persecution. He said that he was authentic, and he always made sure that he told the truth. Brad Knox has a gentle voice and a mild manner, but he has the soul of a warrior, because not only did he have to endure HR persecution while he was a vice president, he also made sure that as a leader, his followers would never have to endure persecution when he had the means to make sure that they would not. Brad Knox said, I would install a leadership plan and a cultural plan that would make sure there was always mutual respect and everyone feels heard. Grit with a smile. This story will inspire you. Grit for the day. Lived experience from influencers who overcome, with CEO and founder Thomas Lee Johnson.